Well, hello. I'm Bob Clifford here. I just wanted to let you know what I was going to be talking about next week. You know, there's so many Christian phrases out there that absolutely make no sense to our friends and neighbor. I mean, think about it. You need to be washed in the blood. I mean, isn't that kind of creepy? Or what we really need to do when our friends are struggling with a job or, health or anything like that, we say, you just need to give this to Jesus. How do you do that? Where is he at? Well, come next week, that's what I'm going to be talking about. And it's going to be amazing because you're going to learn how to take these true phrases and apply it to real life situations. Can't wait to see you next week.
Japan has the world's 10th largest population with approximately 128 million people. The Greater Tokyo area is the largest metropolitan area in the world with around 30 million people. Japan is one of the most densely populated countries in the world. In practice, 85 to 96% of the population consists of Buddhists or Shintoists. But in reality, only 30% of the people say that they actually belong to a religion. Japanese are lovely people, but most of them have no idea that God loves them or that he even exists. With one of the highest suicide rates in the world, most of the Japanese have never met a Christian or have even heard God's amazing promises. And how will they know without someone to tell them? Less than 0.4% of the population are true Christians. In fact, Japan is considered one of the largest unreached people groups in the world. Pakjapan Mission is a branch of Project Amazon Mission. It is an interdenominational church planting mission founded by Tim Huber, who followed his calling to Japan in 1988. This ministry has now grown into 3 church plants, 3 gospel choirs, an exciting children's ministry, family classes for mothers, a Celebrate Recovery program, worship teams, one-on-one discipleship, and numerous Bible studies. They are now in the process of planting a new church in the Shanondai area that would strictly target youth. Their new vision for this new church is to reach hundreds of Japanese youth using contemporary methods, youth worship bands, outdoor activities, small groups focused on biblical teachings. They want to provide for the youth a place that would make them feel safe and valued. And therefore, they are praying for God's provision to meet the following need. They really need missionaries who are passionately in love with Jesus and who have a zeal for reaching the lost with his gospel. They also need people who have some experience working with youth and who have a heart for the Japanese. They're in need of worship leaders or even just band members. They're asking for people that would cover their ministry in prayer. And also, those who feel led by God to contribute financially to support these new missionaries who are going to respond tonight. Their desire is to see many Japanese youth come to know the Lord and be discipled and trained as leaders to reach their generation for Christ. Their long-term vision is to see the birth of new churches all over Japan and the youth of a nation proclaiming Christ. From the grave to the sky.
Hello. Someone's messing with my thing here. Don't have anywhere to put my cup of tea. Now I'm ready. Hey, I want the Hubers to, Tim and Christine, where are you guys? There they are. Turn around and say hi to Tim and Christine Huber. It's great to have you guys here. They have become very endeared friends to me because they love the best people in the world. But they are truly amazing folks that have a heart for God and a heart for Japan. And I just want to encourage you guys, before you leave, they'll be in a booth out in the foyer, and you can go out and talk to them, ask questions, and just pray about maybe God would touch your heart to go to Japan for 6 months, a year, or 2 years to do a short-term mission with them. And man, I tell you, if we could just keep sending teams there, that would be such a great thing, because we are staying connected with Tim and Christine and partnering with them. So God bless you guys. It's great to have you. And Brian McLeese, will you stand up, Brian, bro? Brian's my buddy that works with Convoy of Hope. He's the guy that got us to do the One Day to Feed the World. And he's from Loveland, Colorado, and he's here to help with Sheriff Fest, and then Monday we're going to try to recruit some other pastors to do a One Day to Feed the World, and we're going to treat them to take them out to play a day of golf. So, again, suffering for Jesus, guys. Somebody's got to do it, and I'm just the guy. I just say, yes, Lord. So, anyway, as we talked about Sheriff Fest, this is Sheriff Fest weekend, and we went and did a project this morning and helped a lady clean out some trash in her grown son that lives with her, and then we prayed with them and talked with them. It was really a great time, and we want to continue to reach out to them. And then we went over to Riverside thinking we could go help the youth at Riverside, and they were done with everything. So we sat and ate, and it was a great time. And if any of you haven't done anything with Sheriff Fest, and maybe this stirs something that I'd like to go try to do something, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, they're all meeting at Paradise Valley Trailer Court at 585 25 and a half Road. So you're invited to just come and join in on that. If you want to go for half an hour, or all morning, then come over to the picnic at the park. It's just open for anyone that would want to join in on that. They're just going to go door to door and ask what they can do to serve the trailer court. Okay? Well, I am continuing on in Mark 13. Remember, we were talking about getting through the book of Mark, but it's going to take a while to get through the chapter 13, because there's so much there, and this is just a wild stuff that I kind of uncovered in my research this week, and I just feel like I need to pray before I say anything, okay? Because this stuff is going to turn you sideways. So, Lord, I pray that as we talk about your discourse of the signs of the end of the age, Lord, that we would have wisdom and discernment, Lord, that we wouldn't be reactionary, but Lord, that we would hear your Spirit speaking into our hearts the truth, and that we would be able to prepare our hearts for what may be coming in the future. And Lord, that you would give us also a sense of urgency to really reach the lost and to help them to come to know Christ, because we don't know how long we have. And so, Lord, with this in mind, God, be in this time and give us your heart, and let your truth just speak loud and clear to us. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. So, as I'm talking about these signs of the end of the age, the one thing that I want to put out there before I move forward is the stuff that I'm going to talk about today could be something that the stage is being set, or it could be false labor pains. And we don't know. But the main thing as we see these things is that we would just ask of the Lord, what are you doing in the world right now? Okay? So can we agree to that? And so as I talk about the state of readiness that Jesus is kind of promoting in this chapter, I thought of the Denver Nuggets. And so my son Joey and I, we're just huge Denver Nugget fans. And we were watching all the games, and there's this guy on the team this year that has really captivated us. His name is Chris Anderson, and they call him the Birdman. He's got these wings tattooed on his arms, and man, he's a white guy that can jump like no other white guy. And so he actually got suspended from the NBA for 2 years, 3 years ago, for having drugs in his system. And as he went into his suspension, he turned his life around, that he made the most of it. And I really respect this guy for this. And ESPN interviewed him, and he says, when I look back at everything that happened, I don't regret it. This whole thing saved my life. I needed this to happen. I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't change my ways. Shortly after his expulsion, he entered a rehab clinic and jettisoned his destructive friends. By the summer of 2007, Anderson was fully focused on returning to the NBA. He was working out in Las Vegas with an athletic trainer and playing in highly competitive pickup games. He said, I know this doesn't last forever. I'm not going to throw away what I have over something stupid, he says. But I haven't changed a bit. I'm still the same person I always was. I just don't do the things I used to. I'm smarter now. Now, as I read his testimony, it kind of made me think about what Jesus is kind of promoting in his discourse here is, if you know these things are coming, they are warning signs, and they're warning signs for us to get our hearts in order. And so with that, that's kind of the heart that I want to move forward in with the things that I want to share. And so if we go to Mark 13, we're at verse 3, and we're going to make it all the way to verse 6. And it says, as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are all about to be fulfilled? Jesus said to them, watch out that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and will deceive many. So that's all I'm going to get to today. And what he's talking about is a worldwide great deception that will come over all the people of the world. And I see that there are three areas that he'll be focusing on, meaning the Antichrist, of ways that he will deceive the world. Now, the disciples, as they're sitting across the Kidron Valley and they're looking over at Jerusalem, when Jesus just said, that temple that you see, guys, it's going to be destroyed, and not one stone is going to be left standing on another. And so, as you can imagine, the disciples hearing this, there's got to be insecurity in the guys of like, that's not good news, Jesus. And so when is this going to happen? And so Jesus is saying to them that it's going to happen when someone will come and will deceive the world, and will come to deceive the world as being me, is what he's basically saying. And so, a lot of people hear a lot of stuff about end times prophecies, and admittedly, there's probably a lot of people here that really haven't read much about that in the scriptures. But there are a lot of people, you say, have you read the Bible? What's the one book that most people go to read? They want to read Revelation, right? Because there's something kind of fascinating and mystical about the end times. And so people read that, but if you read just Revelation, it doesn't mean anything to you. It's like, there's so many pieces that you got to put together with the rest of the scriptures. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to cover everything, but what I want to talk about is three things, which is a one world religion, a one world government, and a one world currency. That this is what scriptures talk about of what is to occur as the Antichrist comes and takes over the world. But remember what Jesus said, to take heed so that no one deceives you. As I talk about these things, these are articles that I found, and this is talk that's going on with world leaders. It's very possible that the stage is being set. But it's also possible that this is just a phase and it will pass. We don't know. The main thing Jesus says is to watch, pay attention. This is one of those things that as we hear these things, I think God says you need to pay attention. Would you agree? Okay, so the first thing that he says here, many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and will deceive many. He's talking about a false Messiah, a false prophet, a false Christ. It's the one thing that the enemy does is he always takes what Jesus does and he twists it and he puts a counterfeit spin on it. He copies him, but he turns it around upside down. And so I looked up some of the things, some of the undercurrent things that are going on in the world. Now, a lot of this stuff, these are articles I'm going to read to you, okay? There's people who believe it's called Maitreya is the great teacher. They also believe that Buddha, Messiah, Jesus, Krishna, and the various other future teachers taught by the religions of the world are different names for the same individual, that being Maitreya. They believe he is on the world scene now and is waiting for the appropriate time to reveal himself and lead the world in a global evolution of our collective consciousness. They believe that Maitreya will inspire humanity to see itself as one family and usher in a new civilization of sharing economic and social justice and global cooperation. Now, there's another group that is called the Lucis Trust, L-U-C-I-S. It's kind of interesting. Lucifer? I don't know. That's just what I saw. The Lucis Trust is a nonprofit organization closely associated with the United Nations that works as the legal and financial agent for a number of global organizations. The trust also manages the revolving Tibetan book fund for the perpetuation of the teachings of the Tibetan master Djwhal Khul and Alice A. Bailey. One such organization that is financed by Lucis Trust is World Goodwill. World Goodwill teaches of the coming reappearance of the Christ and a time of preparation not only for a new civilization and culture in a new world order, but also for the coming of a new spiritual dispensation. Fascinating, isn't it? Then there's this group called the Aquarian Age Community, AAC. It says they are preparing for the way of the Christed One, are the great teacher, and the unveiling of the spiritual mysteries, Mystery Babylon. They promote the evolution of human consciousness and are active in the work of the United Nations as a participating non-governmental organization, or an NGO. Their connection to the UN is made obvious by the similarities in language between the two groups. And so you hear of these organizations and what they are promoting. The question that comes to my mind is this the stage being set for the Antichrist to appear and to establish a new one world order? Now, Daniel 9:27 in the Old Testament, he prophesied about the end times, and he said he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7, and that's 7-year period of the tribulation period. In the middle of the 7, at 3.5 years, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. So a few weeks ago, I talked about the rebuilding of the temple, or the reestablishment of animal sacrifices, and then rebuilding maybe a tabernacle or a tent. And then on a wing of the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. That means God's judgment finally comes and Satan's thrown into hell. Matthew 24, Jesus said, basically, they elaborated on what Jesus was saying here in Mark 13. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. And so one of the things that will happen when these false Christ appear, and many have already, is it really brings separation with people, not unity. I found an article from Christian Broadcasting Network, and they said that in 2003, and this is the things you just don't hear about in Geneva, Switzerland, they had a UN peace summit, and they claimed for the ambition that a one world government and a one world religion would come. And he says, it may just sound like fiction from the popular Left Behind novel series, but some Christians say this scenario may be closer than most people think. There was Reverend Brown Campbell at this summit, and they interviewed him, and he said, this is a meeting, of course, of people of all religions. And I think that what we've all tried to do is to call on the common deity that everyone will say, everyone here would say there is a God. So here we see people talking about a one world religion, that there's groups that are motivated to instill that. The next thing is there will need to be established a one world government. And the one thing you think about in a one world government is one of the ways that world leaders have come in the past is in times of economic crisis, they're able to come in and deceive the people and take over. Hitler is a prime example of that, right? So, if the world's economy would crumble, and one person could come in and say, I have the solution for how to solve all the world's problems, where we join together as one world government and we cooperate together to establish a new economic world. That could be right around the corner. It may not be, but watch and see. Daniel 7:23, I want to go back to Daniel. He talks about a vision that he had, and he says, he gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. This fourth kingdom is believed to be the Roman Empire that really is still in existence economically in the world. And he says, it will be different from all other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kingdoms who will come from the kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones, and he will subdue the 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High, meaning God, and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times and a half. That's 3.5 years. So, what we see of these 10 horns is believed to be 10 world kingdoms that will evolve in the world. And the Antichrist will rule the world through these 10 kingdoms. That he would be the head, and then there would be 10 kings underneath him. Now, this new world order, many superpowers are using this to describe peace, unity, and harmony and security. Other terms that you may hear is a one world government or globalization. And so all these terms are used interchangeably by a number of people, and they basically all mean the same thing. Now, the first person who actually publicly spoke about a one world government was Mikhail Gorbachev in 1988. In his speech, he said, further global progress is now possible only through a quest for universal consensus in the movements toward a new world order. So that was in 88. That was 21 years ago that Gorbachev first spoke of this. In 1990, at the Helsinki summit, President George Bush said the foundation for the new world order would be laid in Helsinki, in that it would be established under the United Nations. Fascinating, isn't it? Now, there's this guy named Jerome Corsi who's kind of a watchdog of this New World Order kind of stuff, and he said that President Bush is pursuing a globalist agenda to create a North American Union, effectively erasing our borders with both Mexico and Canada. This was the hidden agenda behind the Bush administration's true open borders policy. So NAFTA is believed to be the first step in that, and then it's very possible that this North American Union will become one of those 10 kingdoms. Now, Paul, the Apostle Paul, warned in 1 Thessalonians 5:3, says, while the people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. And so there will be, when the Antichrist takes over, there will be a false front of world peace and unity that everyone's going to buy into unless you're watching for it. Now, to be able to operate as a one world government, in a one world religion, there needs to develop a one world currency. I found this article from Carol Quigley, and he's a Harvard and Princeton professor emeritus. And he said that there is a power of a small group of international banksters. And he says they are finding it increasingly difficult to conceal their true nature. And he said of this group, their aim is nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. The system was to be controlled in a feudalistic fashion by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. And so there's other things that you see happening in the world. There's, in September 2008, an article in WorldNet Daily said that 6 Islamic states are constituting the Gulf Cooperation Council. And that's Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. And it said that the 5 states in the compact have agreed to set 2010 as the target date for the creation of a monetary union and the adoption of common currency. And we all know that the economic union did the same thing years ago with the euro. There's also, in Southeast Asia, there's a group called the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, and they first met in 1985. And it says that since then, productive meetings were held to develop ideas for forging ahead. This unique forum has been struggling to bring home several messages of goodwill, peace, and tranquility in the region. And then the current president of the UN General Assembly, Miguel Descoto, he's planning a summit with the assistance of his 15-member board of advisors. And it says the goal of Descoto and his supporters is the domination of the world's economy by the Marxist-oriented UN. Descoto views the June UN summit as only the beginning of a process of laying the foundation for a new financial economic architecture. Descoto's panel is seeking to establish a global economic coordination council at the UN, which would direct the world's economy, according to the Radio Havana. So as I thought of that, I went to Revelation 13, verse 11. And it kind of describes what's going to happen. In the end, it says, then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. So some